Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to our webinar today. And we are going to have a very good discussion with Lucas, where we are going to learn more about our webinar top subject is on Towards IPOS Consultation webinar, which is on introducing Towards IPOS to the Western Indian Ocean Early Career Scientist Network. So we're going to learn more about the IPOS Consortium and how we could potentially collaborate and work together within the region. So if you're joining us today, you're warmly welcome. I would like to introduce you to some of the main tools that you can access to throughout our webinar. Feel free to ask questions in the question and answer session. And you can also use the chat box for your introduction. We'll be happy to know where you're joining us from, your country, your name, and probably any interest that you may have in that you may want to learn from our webinar today. You can put that in the chat box. And if you have any question for our speaker today, you can just put it in the question and answer session. And yeah, we can move from there. So today we have Lucas. Lucas works as a project officer for the Ocean Sustainability Foundation, hosted by the CNRS Foundation. Lucas holds a master's degree in international security with a focus on environmental security from the Paris School of International Affairs, Sciences Po in Paris. Lucas has various professional experience in advocacy, working for several NGOs dedicated for the protection and promotion of human and/or environmental rights. He works as a national advocacy assistant for the Ocean and Climate Platform. Lucas, we are very much happy to have you today within this webinar and for us to tell us about the IPOS Consortium. We are very much happy to have you today in this webinar. Could you please tell us a bit of an introduction of what IPOS is and the consortium? How does it look like, and what are the goals it holds for us?
Thank you very much, Eilers. And yeah, first of all, thank you very much for everyone to be here. It's a very pleasure and an honor to be here with you, to be able to share our information about this project that we have and that we want to co-design with as many knowledge and right holders as we can, including the youth community. So yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here with you today. Special thanks, of course, to Frank, Eilers, and Lilian for your support in organizing this session, in making it possible, and for everything that you will do today. So yeah, once again, thank you very much for this. And yeah, just before we start going deep diving into the core of this session, I wanted to say that yeah, this consultation that we are currently doing as part of the consortium that I work for is very important for us to be able to have feedback on our key ideas while we are designing the project that I will introduce in a few minutes. And yeah, we think that the youth and early career professionals and practitioners have a crucial role to play in co-designing this project and in also at this interface between knowledge and decision making. We think youth is a key knowledge and right holder. That youth is also a key a driver of change and within the Towards IPOS initiative, and for achieving the key ocean sustainability targets that we have. So yeah, once again, thank you very much for having me today and helping in organizing this. And yes, hopefully we will have a lot of feedback from you, and I can't wait to hear from your ideas and feedback and comments on what we will present. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lucas. We are extremely happy to have you, and we are eager to hear what you're going to tell us today. So before we proceed, for those joining us, we'd like to welcome you again and just wanted to share with you about the Western Indian Ocean Early Career Scientist Network and what we have been doing as a network in the Western Indian Ocean region and what we could possibly collaborate with the consortium that Lucas is going to share with us today. So the Western Indian Ocean Early Career Scientist Network is a network of early careers in the Western Indian Ocean region. And we are looking to connect early careers within the region, advancing capacity building and sharing science, advancing science knowledge within the early career profession, and also helping the early career within the Western Indian Ocean region to develop in their ocean careers. And this Western Indian Ocean Early Career Scientist Network is a network under Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Association, WIOMSA, which is an association which is dealing mainly on developing science, ocean science in the whole of the Western Indian Ocean region. So we are very much happy to have you all. And for those who will be interested to learn more about the Western Indian Ocean region, Western Indian Ocean Early Career Scientist Network, you can always go and through our websites on the Western Indian Ocean Early Career Scientist Network website, or you can also learn more about the WIOMSA on Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Association website. Yeah, so Lucas, you can now tell us more about the IPOS Consortium, what it is, and how we can possibly engage and be involved in it.
Thank you very much. So I will share my screen with you. I have a few slides to introduce you the Towards IPOS project and this consultation process that we are currently having. Are you able to see the screen? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So, perfect. So as you can see on the screen, the project that I will introduce to you today, it's called Towards an International Panel for Ocean Sustainability, Towards an IPOS. So yeah, the IPOS per se does not exist yet. Our objective is to launch it next year by June 2025 at the UN Ocean Conference that will take place in Nice, France, co-organized by France and Costa Rica. And yeah, so the idea of the International Panel for Ocean Sustainability is to create a new mechanism to reinvent the interface between ocean knowledge and decision makers. So during this presentation, I will start with introducing this initiative as a whole, and I will then focus on presenting the consultation process, so what it is, where it stands within this project, what are the objectives of this consultation process, and then we will move on to a more interactive session where you will be able to ask your questions and to share your comments in the Q&A section. Okay. So first of all, a bit of context on the Towards IPOS project, and especially on the reason why we believe that an IPOS is necessary. We all know it. We're currently in a state of ocean emergency, to use the words of the UN Secretary General. And what we've seen in the last couple of years is that nation states are very far from achieving the targets, the international ocean sustainability targets that were agreed, for instance, with the SDG 14 or the Global Biodiversity Framework and other similar targets. As you can see on the screen, even the key targets of the SDG 14 that were supposed to be achieved by the early 2020s are far from being achieved for most of the countries. And we believe that a key enabler to accelerate this implementation would be to have a better functioning of this science policy interface. This assumption, it comes from a lot of work that we have been doing for the last 2 years, a lot of events, workshops, discussions, interviews, including with the participation of the Western Indian Ocean early career scientists in some of our events or interviews, and also as part of a seascape assessment, what we call a seascape assessment that was ordered by the European Commission, and it was a report on what is currently done at this science policy interface for the ocean. Basically, we analyzed a lot of key reports from the IPCC, from the IPBES, the World Ocean Assessment, etc. And to see how this science policy interface was working. And what we've seen in this report, and the key conclusion that we come up with, was that there's a lot of knowledge that is currently available regarding ocean sustainability and the ocean, but that this knowledge is very siloed and dispersed into a lot of different initiatives and a lot of different reports. And this makes it less actionable and less accessible for decision makers. because it's very difficult for them to find the knowledge that is corresponding to their key questions. Another key gap that we have identified was also on the lack of inclusivity in the type of and the source of knowledge that are used in those reports. Most of the knowledge that is used is currently from natural science and not really much from human and social science, and even less from the knowledge that is held by indigenous people in local communities, by the private sector, by the NGOs, etc. So we think that we have a lot of work to do on this, even if, to be fair, there has been a lot of work on this in the recent years, especially with the IPBS, but we think that there's still a lot to do on this thing. And this is the reason why we came up with the proposition of a new mechanism that will be called IPOS, and that will respond to 4 main values. The idea of being demand-driven, so to respond to key questions that will be asked from decision makers and other stakeholders, that will do so in an action-oriented way, so producing documents and deliverables that will be ready to use, that will correspond to the questions that are asked, that will be adapted to the context in which this question was asked, and that will be also more accessible and intuitive in the format. So not producing big reports, but really much more actionable deliverables with key policy recommendations or policy options to help decision makers move forward on the implementation of their key ocean sustainability targets. And something that is very key also for us is this idea of having a holistic and inclusive approach, in the sense that we want to make sure that for every one of our projects, we are engaging with all the knowledge and rights holders and all the stakeholders that are impacted by the subjects. So working in close collaboration with local communities, with scientists, with the private sector, with the NGOs, of course, with the youth communities. So yeah, this is very key for us. As I was mentioning briefly earlier, our key objective is to be able to present the first version of the IPOS. So what concretely the IPOS will be, how it will work, what will be its governance, etc. To do so by June 2025 at the UN Ocean Conference. And until then, we are on the collective path towards co-designing the IPOS and what it will be in the future. One of our key missions in that way is to find a home for the IPOS. We believe that it's key that the IPOS is some way integrated within the UN system in terms of legitimacy, to be able also to have relations with nation states. We believe that it's key to be hosted within this UN ecosystem. But also one thing that is very important for us is to be able to interact and engage with the existing mechanisms. With the IPOS, we don't want to replace anything that is already existing. Our objective is not to produce, for instance, a big report on the global state of the ocean. This is already done. We have the State of the Ocean report from the IOC UNESCO. We have the World Ocean Assessment, etc. What we want to do with the IPOS really is to act as a middle person between the knowledge holders and the decision makers. So really to connect the dots and to amplify what is already done and make it more accessible and more actionable for decision makers. So we have some key projects within that will guide us for the last coming month that we have before launching officially the IPOS, especially this Towards IPOS consortium that we are part of, and that is funded by the European Commission with 3 main activities, 3 main work packages. The first one is on continuing the feasibility study of the IPOS. Concretely, it means that we are looking at what already exists, trying to find what could be the best added value possible for the IPOS. So how the IPOS could be complementary with what already exists, and also how the IPOS could learn from what already exists, what are the best practices to act at this knowledge policy interface, to work collectively with different and diverse stakeholders and knowledge and rights holders. The second one, it's on designing the IPOS terms of reference. So it's a bit closer to what I mentioned earlier, concretely what the IPOS will be, how it will work, what will be its governance, what kind of deliverables it will produce, etc. And the last one is on operationalizing the IPOS. So it's much more on communication and branding, and also on stakeholder engagement. How do we design strategies that facilitate the participation of a very diverse range of knowledge and right holders? And another key project that we want to develop before June 2025, it's what we call the pilot projects. The idea that we have is to be able to use some projects as an opportunity to showcase what could be the added value of IPOS. So concretely, having concrete examples of what the IPOS could bring and what could be the added value of IPOS in the future. So we have those 3 pilot projects. If you want me to, I can share more information on this. But yeah, the only one that is currently launched is the Deep Sea pilot project. It comes from a question that was asked from the French president, so President Macron, who asked IPOS to do a global state of knowledge. So concretely, what is the knowledge now on deep sea ecosystems and the possible consequences of the exploitation of deep sea, to know, to be able to make decisions that are informed on the best knowledge available and to guide the negotiations at the ISA next year. And we have 2 other pilot projects that will be launched in a couple of weeks/months. The second one will be launched officially next week at the COP16 in Cali, Colombia. And I think this is pretty much everything on the first section. So I will now deep dive on the consultation process. That is one of our key activities for the coming month. And then we will be able to have a much more interactive session. So just to do a bit of context on this consultation, as you can see on the screen, we have, and as I just presented, we have a lot of incoming projects for the coming months. And this consultation process, it is a key activity for helping us co-designing the term of reference. So it's really like the objective of testing the first ideas that have emerged from the last 2 years of workshops, of reports, of interviews, etc., and doing a bit of like feedback from what has been thought and what emerged from the last 2 years. Influence these thoughts and come back on it with as many feedback as we can. This consultation process, it was launched in June 2024 officially during the Immersed in Change conference that took place in Costa Rica, which was a bit of the prologue to the UNOC that will be held 1 year after this Immersed in Change conference in Costa Rica. So we did like several sessions and interviews to test the very first, like it was the very first draft of the terms of reference, and we emerged from this with really what was the first version of the what could be the terms of reference of the IPOS. And since then, we have officially make it public and accessible to as many stakeholders as we can. So as you can see on the screen, we have officially launched it on July the 3rd. You have a video that is available on YouTube if you want to look at it. And we have also several activities that are like key components of this consultation process. So the first activity, it's the online consultation. If you want to have access to the online consultation, you have the QR code at the bottom of the screen that you can scan, and it will send you an email to register to this online consultation. Our objective was really to ask key questions to a very diverse pool of knowledge and right holders, very like globally, and to be able to receive their key feedbacks on very specific topics for co-designing what the IPOS will be in the future. To complete this online consultation, we are organizing some targeted workshops and bilateral meetings with key strategic partners, including states and intergovernmental organizations, including UN organizations. We've done one, for instance, also with the IOC UNESCO, with the OECD, with also the coalition of scientific institutions that we have supporting the IPOS, and of course with other strategic partners, including youth and early career scientists and early career professional networks. So this was very important for us to be able to have the opportunity to receive some feedback from the youth networks and early career scientists and early career practitioners networks. And to complete this, we also have an offsite seminar with some members of the IPOS system from our advisory board and also from our knowledge committee members and the consortium. So this was pretty much everything on the consultation process introducing the Towards IPOS initiative. If you have any question on this, feel free to share with us in the Q&A section. And if you agree now, we can go on to the much more interactive session on discussing together of what could be the IPOS in the future and how we could have the best possible version and the best possible added value for the IPOS in the future. Okay, so how it will work? I will first introduce some of the ideas that we have. So for instance, on this one is on the reason why we believe that an IPOS is necessary. Then, as you can see on the screen, what we had in mind was to offer you the opportunity to respond to some key questions and to also ask your key questions on those topics. So for this first one, I will start with introducing, and you've already seen this map on the reason why we believe that an IPOS is necessary and the need to improve this ocean knowledge policy society interface. We think within the IPOS consortium, the Towards IPOS consortium, sorry, that it's very important and that it's needed to have some additional efforts at this interface to help decision makers accelerate the implementation of those key ocean sustainability targets. What we were wondering, for this vision for the IPOS is really on what you think would be needed to accelerate the achievement of those key sustainability targets. So for instance, would it be, do we need a better knowledge of the ocean, a better knowledge of possible solutions for ocean sustainability? Do we need to have better access to knowledge, much more fundings, much more political will to accelerate the work at this interface? The other question that was very interesting for us was, as early career scientists and as young ocean professionals, what are the main limiting barriers that you face to act at this knowledge policy interface? What are the challenges that you are currently facing? For instance, do you think that knowledge is too fragmented and it's too difficult to make it actionable? Or do you think that there's not enough access to decision makers for scientists and early career professionals? So what are the limiting barriers at this science policy interface and at this knowledge policy interface that you are facing? And finally, the other question is to insist on the fact that we are convinced that youth and early career professionals are a key driver for transformative action. And we wanted to know, on your opinion, what could be done within the IPOS and more largely to strengthen the voice of early career professionals and of young ocean professionals in the knowledge systems and in the decision-making process. So the floor is now yours. We will leave you a few minutes to ask your question in the chat, and I will be very happy to answer. And Eilers, if you want to say a few words before this, the floor is yours now.
Yeah, thank you so much for a very nice presentation. I'm not sure if the participant can be able to access the chat box, but feel free to put your question in the Q&A. For those who we have just one question in the Q&A. For those who still have questions in the Q&A, please do that. For our questions, you can also put a reply in the Q&A. I think we'll be able to see that also. It will be very nice for us to understand on the three main questions that Lucas have listed in the presentation. And this is a very nice for us to start thinking, because we are, for instance, we are in a run of the UN Ocean Decades, and today is we are going to 2025. We are only remaining with almost only 5 years to reach to the 2030, are the goals of the 2030 goals, are they really attained or reached, and what could possibly help to accelerate that? And this is a very nice discussion, and yeah, I'm very much glad that this IPOS is brought about so that everyone could be thinking on reaching the targets and not only speaking and not only planning. And yeah, so I will very much happy to hear from the participants upon responding to the questions. And if you have a question, please do put it in the Q&A. We'll be sure you'll be able to answer that. I can see Lucas is replying to Ali's question, which was asking, I didn't see the FAO in the list of main engagement partners. Is it categorized in other relevant stakeholders? Yeah.
Yeah, so I will maybe right
Yeah.
now. So yeah, of course, the FAO is a key actor of this sense and knowledge policy interface. We are especially wanting to work with the FAO on one of our key pilot projects that I've introduced earlier that will be launched actually next week on the fair and equitable inclusion of IPLC, so Indigenous people and local communities, knowledge and experience in this ocean knowledge systems. The FAO is working a lot on those questions, and we want to have a pilot project on this, especially in Costa Rica with small-scale fishers, and of course small-scale fisheries and all the key challenges and opportunities regarding the fair inclusion and of their knowledge in these knowledge systems and oceans decision-making processes are something that is key for the FAO. So we believe that, yeah, we definitely want to work with FAO, and if you have some opportunities with that you would like to share also with us, we would be very happy to do so. But yeah, of course, FAO is a key actor at this science policy interface.
Thank you so much. There is a question from Hassan, which is saying, could you please explain IPO's main objectives and relationship with the nations, since you are focusing on ocean sustainability?
Yes, thank you. So I will maybe focus on this much more in the next section, but just to respond quickly to your question, the key objective for the IPOS is to really, as I mentioned, act as a middle person between the knowledge holders and the right holders and the decision makers on the other side. Concretely, what we want to do is to help states that are willing to act on ocean sustainability targets to have the best knowledge available to accelerate the implementation of their key targets. So, for instance, if we take the Global Biodiversity Framework, Target 3 of protecting 30% of their marine space by 2030, we would be able to gather a lot of different experts from their country and their region, also making sure that we are gathering a team that like a working group that will be transdisciplinary, inclusive, having local scientists, but not only like natural scientists, but also human and social science, having local NGOs, local communities that are working on specific areas of protection and preservation, also having the private sector as well. So yeah, gathering this team, this transdisciplinary team to help states move forward on the implementation of their key ocean sustainability targets.
Thank you so much. And I believe your answer has also answered Inga's question, which was asking, do IPOS consider community level actions? As many coastal communities today are using the resources, but some also have the opportunity to manage their own area regarding fisheries and conservation.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, just very briefly on this, it's also one of key objectives to make sure that we reinforce the interaction between local communities and nation states to make sure that, for instance, the conservation mechanisms that are currently existing, they can be, for instance, integrated within those policies, such as the policy that would be implemented for the 30 by 30, for instance.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And I see some response to our questions on the presentation from Rodney and Josephine. Rodney was saying, I believe that a better knowledge of ocean is needed in terms of mapping vulnerable zones and also the stressors that affect key ecosystems. So Rodney is emphasizing on ocean literacy in pushing the actions for ocean sustainability. And there is another comment from Josephine is saying, I think that more focus should be included in exploring how actions upstream from the inland affect the ocean ecosystem. Lucas, can you tell us if the IPOS is also considering the actions from the inland, which in one way or another can have effect to our ocean?
Of course, it's one of the key topics that we have identified at the very beginning of this project, the interface between land and sea, and how the action on inland have an influence on the condition on the coastal zones and in the sea. So of course we will try to in our working group make sure that these questions and this focus are taken into consideration. But yeah, of course this is something that we have to take into consideration. Thank you for reminding us.
Thank you. I believe, Lucas, I believe inside our attendance, we have different stakeholders that IPOS is looking for. We have Eric Arias, we have different, they might be affiliated. We have seen in the attendance record, there are different affiliated institutions and NGOs that IPOS may be willing to looking into engaging in the IPOS. Could you at least enlighten them on how possibly their institutions and Eric Arias can be involved or engaged in the IPOS?
Sure. So several ways to get involved in the co-design of the IPOS, because for now the IPOS, as I was mentioning, does not exist yet. So right now what we are doing is co-designing it. At the institutional level, we have a coalition of scientific institutions that are officially supporting the Towards IPOS project. So we have a coalition of 28 scientific institutions, so universities, academies, research centers that are officially supporting the IPOS project. And the objective of this coalition is to facilitate the interaction between the scientific community and the Towards IPOS project, to facilitate the participation of the experts within those institutions in the co-design of the IPOS, but also in the pilot projects that I briefly mentioned. So this is, for instance, one of the opportunities for getting involved at the institutional level. For other kind of institutions, we are also developing a coalition that we call the strategic partners. So it's much more organization from the civil society, for instance, and that will serve a bit as a balance for the coalition of scientific institutions. So very the same role of facilitating the participation of these partners into the different projects that we want to have. If you are interested by joining these coalitions, feel free to contact us. We'll be very happy to explain more concretely what it means for the institutions, what is expected, what we also can offer, and how could you concretely join those coalitions? So this is the first idea. At the individual aspect, we have several opportunities. I briefly mentioned the online survey, and it can be a good way for you to be involved and to share your comments with us on what you think is needed for the IPOS and what could be the best version possible of the IPOS. So if you want me to, I can share the link to the survey if you don't have it yet with you by the end of this presentation. And also we have some other opportunities. We are designing right now what we call a knowledge community development team. So a transdisciplinary team of experts, of individual experts that will help us co-design the IPOS, especially making sure that we can build strong relationships with different actors and stakeholders all around the world, so globally. So if you would be interested by this project, I can also share a few words on this. But yeah, the very key objective is to be able to have some strategic partners all over the world, so that in the future, when we will work on a specific topic, we can have a clear idea of who are the best, who are the most influent, and the organization and institutions that are active on the ground for specific topics. So yeah, I would be very happy to have a specific meetings with the organization if you want me to introduce more details about this.
Well, thank you so much for that, because I saw there's many more focus on how youth, how regional, organizational, national, international level could possibly be involved in this. I see a very nice comment from T.A. Bouts. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name. It's saying, I think the main problem in environmental policy is there is very little to no political cost for not reaching the policy goals on time. Increasing these political costs would be extremely effective for the policy correct implementation. Could IPOS work on this problematic, and if so, how? And also, there is a point on question 2D on the slide does not correspond to key priorities. And then now TBS is pressing that how to make it a key priority.
Okay, so thank you very much for this question. For the first one, I think I will be able to share some more details on it in the third section of this interaction, to see how with the IPOS we can help all the knowledge and right holders to have a bit of to hold responsibility for that the state held the responsibilities for the action, and to encourage the action on ocean sustainability priorities that are identified by local scientists or local NGOs or youth communities, etc. So I will come back to this maybe in a few slides. But yeah, we think it's very important for the IPOS. Like as I mentioned a few times already, we want to be this middle person between the knowledge holders and the decision makers, but not only in one way, not only from decision makers asking for knowledge. It does not work if it's only one way. In a dialogue, it has to be the two ways. So also offering opportunities for the knowledge holders and right holders to use IPOS as a way to reach out to nation states. So yeah, this is very important for us. And regarding the second question on how to, if I understood it correctly, how to make the key enablers for youth and early career professionals and early career practitioners a key priority for this knowledge policy interface. I think it's a very interesting thing that you brought here, and yeah, I would be very happy to discuss this further with you. Like, how do we concretely make the inclusion of youth and early career communities a priority for decision makers at this science policy interface?
Thank you. Yeah, I think maybe proceed with the presentation.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, if we didn't have the time to respond to all the questions, I see that a lot also of response to our questions. We will make sure to keep the question that were asked, and I will also share my email by the end of uh, of the the meeting so that you can send me your questions if you have any. So let's move on now to the second section that is much more on the emerging ideas for the IPOS. So concretely, what the IPOS would look like what we think could be an interesting ideas for IPOS in the future. Of course, as I was mentioning before, this is not definitive. It's the first ideas that emerged, but we are currently testing it, and we are currently trying to make those ideas better and better corresponding to what is needed and what could make a difference at this science policy interface. So the idea that we have, and it responds a bit to some of the questions that were asked earlier, was to focus on states and group of states as the primary target for IPOS products, but working in close collaboration with the civil society, with the scientific communities, with the youth communities, with the local communities, etc., and to emphasize the collaboration between states and all the knowledge holders to assisting states to accelerate the achievement of international ocean sustainability targets and frameworks. One thing that is very important also for us is that with the IPOS, we don't want to have a specific regional focus. We want to be able to act as a global level, like to offering the opportunity at least for every country and every stakeholder from any country to solicit the IPOS for assistance and to solicit the IPOS to help advancing the implementation of those key priorities. So the first question that we have, and then I will move on to the second slide, is do you think that these initial design choices, they make sense to accelerate the achievement of ocean sustainability targets in an inclusive and equitable way? And just before offering you the floor once more, I wanted to share with you first ideas that we have for the vision and mission statement for the IPOS. So concretely, the vision that we had originally for the IPOS was to envision the IPOS in a world where political action toward ocean sustainability targets is enabled by access to timely, contextually relevant, actionable, inclusive, and verified knowledge. So that knowledge is a key component for accelerating the implementation of ocean sustainability targets. And then, in this corresponding to this vision, we identified a mission statement for the IPOS, where the IPOS would be operating with an inclusive and systems approach. So making sure that we get involved all the knowledge holders and all the right holders in every of our projects, and that the IPOS will be acting as a knowledge broker to deliver an independent, timely, and actionable support in response to key questions from countries and other ocean stakeholders who would like to accelerate the implementation of key ocean sustainability targets and frameworks. So the question here was, especially like concretely, do you think that do you agree with this vision and mission statement? Do you think that it makes sense? That is corresponds to what is needed? And also, one thing that I wanted to test with you in the first consultation that we've done, one of the main results that came back was the need to reflect more the IPOS core values in those vision and mission statement, especially the need to highlight the inclusive and holistic approach by clearly mentioning the fact that we want to work with the local communities, we want to work with the youth communities, with the early career professionals, because if we do not mention it in our vision, we are kind of repeating the marginalization that is currently happening in similar processes. So yeah, I wanted to know if this suggestion makes sense for you, and particularly also what role do you think youth and early career professionals could play in this context? So yeah, I'm very happy to have your feedback on those questions. I can come back also very quickly on the previous slides if you want to, and maybe I will move on in a few minutes on the second one, because so that you have time to see both slides. Hey Lars, I don't know if you want to say anything.
I was looking on the question, the chat box. Yeah, many of them. I think you have respond to them. Maybe there is something raised on the issue of because they will see on deep sea there was an issue on blue economy. Does the IPOS also focus on promoting the sustainable economy and reaching the goals in that areas too?
I can respond while the other questions are coming. Um, Of course, the economic sector and like the ocean blue economy are key topics if when we talk of ocean sustainability. So of course, the having this in our mind while in every of our working groups would be necessary. One thing that we have to discuss, and we are currently doing it, is how the IPOS activity will be complementary with what, for instance, the Ocean Panel is currently doing, so the high-level panel for an ocean sustainable economy. Because, as I was mentioning earlier, with the IPOS, we don't want to reproduce anything that is already done. The objective is really to be complementary with what already exists. So maybe it's collaborating with this ocean panel. Maybe it's facilitating the similar work in the countries that are not member of this ocean panel, because for now it's only 18 countries. Um, but yeah, of course, ocean economy it's key, and we believe that the private sector is a key, also a key driver for transformative change, and that if we do not have key engagement and key objectives also from the private sector, we will not reach a sustainable change for the ocean. So of course, it's necessary.
Cool. Um, Maybe for the participants who are still here, maybe if you have any question or if you have any comments on the second session that Lucas is presenting now, please put it in the question and answer session, and we will be able to see it. Yeah, maybe to strengthen a bit, how do you see the political leaders in responding to the ocean emergencies in taking these actions? Because we have seen our political leaders taking a very long time to decide and implementing the science that we need for the future of our ocean. We have seen discussions on the UNFCCCs on COPs, and the actions on those agreements are not as fast as the way we want them to be. And we also see many discussions, even in the deep sea mining with the International Seabed Authority meetings. We normally see these political meetings and discussions and agreements, and but the action of it is really slow. How do you see the progression or the acceleration of these political discussions and the political wills to actually take actions from our political leaders?
Thank you very much for this question, and it's actually a great transition for the section 3. So I don't know if we want to take a question on this, or maybe I can go on to the section 3, and
Yeah.
if you still have questions on the second section, I can come back on it. But
Yeah.
concretely, it's very linked to what we have in mind of like the emerging ideas of what the IPOS could do in the future. What would be the services that IPOS could provide to concretely help the implementation concretely on the ground, to have action for implementing those key objectives, and not only having speeches and big announcements, but very accelerating action. So what we have in mind for the IPOS services is the 3 services. Of course, once again, it's not definitive, and we'd be very happy to have your feedback on it and to see how we could improve those services. But this is the first ideas that emerged. Um, The first one is what we call the ocean action request. Actually, it's a bit, it's the idea of starting from a question from a nation state. So that will um, submit a request for ocean knowledge to the IPOS, and the IPOS will be in charge of synthesizing and gathering the best knowledge available to respond to these key questions. And how it will do so? It will do so by creating a hybrid working group combining local scientists, local communities, the civil society, the youth community, the private sector, etc., to work together on trying to identify key policy options that will concretely help accelerate the implementation. So really like producing concrete policy recommendations that will help decision makers move forward to the implementation of their key targets. So it's really this idea of producing actionable feedback for helping the acceleration of implementation of those ocean sustainability targets. And this is what we are experiencing with the pilot project that we are currently having on deep sea ecosystems and the exploitation of deep sea mining is starts from a question from a decision maker, and we built this group, this transdisciplinary group, to try to provide some key policy options to help the decision makers in their negotiation at the international level, especially at the ISA that you just mentioned. The second service, it's what we call the Ocean Sentinel, and it's a bit, as I was mentioning before, it's a way to balance this first service. As I was mentioning, with the IPOS, we want to act as a middle person, but not only in one way. We want to develop the dialogue between ocean knowledge and right holders and decision makers, but not only in one way. And it's important for us that the ocean community, the scientists, the civil society, the youth communities, the private sector, etc., they are also able to use IPOS as a way to centralize and to gather their key priorities, to push it in front of decision makers, and to advocate for the creation of a working group on those key priorities topics that were identified by the civil society or the scientific community. It's something that was mentioned a lot when we were discussing in the last few years with key ocean sustainability actors, that it's very difficult for scientists or for NGOs to reach to decision makers and to have the opportunity of have concrete action done on those key priorities. So with the IPOS, we hope that we will be able to push it in front of decision makers. Of course, it will be anonymized so that there are no repercussion on the person that are pushing for those priorities. But yeah, the idea that we want is use the IPOS as a voice speaker for raising key priority topics. And the third service, it's a bit different from the two others. It's what we call the Ocean Quick Connect or a rapid response. The idea is having a tool that will be able to provide a rapid response on urgent requests from an ocean stakeholder or knowledge holder who would need to have a quick access to a certain knowledge. For instance, concretely, what we have in mind is we can think of a state delegation or a small-scale fisher organization, for instance, who will be needed for preparing a big meeting, for instance, COP16, that will be coming in a few days, even now, to know what are the main topics that will be discussed during this meeting, what are the knowledge that is available to help the discussions on those key topics, also what are the best ways possible for participate actively into this negotiation and meetings to, for instance, have a seat at the tables of negotiations, organize a side event to make your voice heard and things like this. So really, this idea of having a kind of a capacity building tool to help any ocean stakeholder and ocean knowledge and right holders to be actively part into the big negotiations and the big meetings that will take part in the coming years. And so this is what I wanted to present to you. And coming back to the questions, I wanted to know to what extent do you think that these services, they actually fill the gap that we have identified at this knowledge policy society interface to help countries accelerate the achievement of their key ocean sustainability targets. Also, if you think that there are other organizations that are already providing similar services at the regional or global or national level, because it will be very interesting for us to have to have a clear view of how they proceed, how they do, for instance, create this hybrid working group, what are the best tools to make it work concretely and to make some very concrete policy options emerge from those working groups. And also, one thing that is very important for us is, would you, as an early career professional or young ocean stakeholder, be interested into using the services if they were available, or into participating in those services if, when they will be available? And then finally, the last question is, what do you anticipate as potential barriers for the participation of youth and early career ocean professionals and practitioners in the IPOS, and what could be the key enablers to facilitate your participation into those services? So I can come back to the previous slide and be very happy to answer your questions if you have. And Aylas, I don't know if it's responded to the previous question that you have, or if you want me to focus more on one specific element.
Yeah, you have really responded to that, and I saw the questions that you put. I think our participants may try to respond on them in the Q&A session. I will also love to see answers from them, because I see many comments on how NGOs, individuals take expertise, youth and early career could possibly be engaged in all this process. And IPOS is trying to bring every stakeholder possible to follow up on these actionable requests and the policy and the discussion in availability of ocean knowledge. So yeah, I would also love to see some of the responses from the questions that Lucas have portrayed just right now. So maybe while we are waiting to hear some of responses from our participants, I wanted to stress something on that. How will the IPOS also be like tracking? Because okay, just assume that we already see the actions, and we can access to the knowledge and the policy discussions and actions that we'll be able to like track the milestone. That is, okay, we have made this discussion was this agreement was made and it has made this progress, because sometimes you might look on this agreement, you may say, okay, they have agreed to this, but they are actually not doing it. So we also, I must be able to like track what are the impacts brought from these discussions in the policy and science framework.
Yes, thank you very much for this question. It's actually one of the key feedback that emerged from this consultation, the previous discussion that we had. It's that it will be needed that the IPOS produce like a yearly document every year, so to do a bit of a summary of what were the big projects that were undertaken within the IPOS project, what were the key achievements from those projects, so concretely what has been done on the ground following these projects, who were the people that were the stakeholders that were involved and that we engaged within this project, how they were engaged with following up with the concrete implementation of the recommendations. So this idea of having like a yearly summary of the IPOS activity, to be fully transparent of what we do, what we've done, and what were the consequences of our project, to also identify the key success, but also the sometimes what didn't work and how possibly we could improve what we want to do. So yeah, of course, it's very key, and co-construction of knowledge, and more largely, it doesn't stop when it's produced. It, like, the following up and the monitoring and the evaluation, it's key if we want to co-design key policy options for achieving ocean sustainability targets. So yeah, definitely.
That's very nice. So for our participants, for the few minutes that we have left with, please do. I would really love to see some response to the questions seen on the question 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. Yeah, I would also love to hear on the what are the barriers for youth and early career ocean profession in participating in the IPOS, and what could possibly be done to enable their participation and engagement in the IPOS.
Yeah, and feel free to put your question in the chat, even if we don't have any time left to answer it. I will make sure that we will provide some answer after the call on paper on a report. So yeah, and
Yes.
even for the question that we didn't have the opportunity to answer, because I see there's 31 questions that have been asked
Yeah.
in the chat yet.
Yeah.
Feel free
Yeah. There's a lot of questions, and yeah, and just to respond to Mariam's request, the session is recorded and will be shared after this by email. You'll receive an email on the key informations from the session, including presentation, and email, Lucas' email, and the survey link also.
Okay, sorry. Should I leave the question on? Should I stop sharing my screen, maybe?
I think you should leave the question on.
Yeah.
Okay. Will you share the presentation email? Yes, the presentation will be shared after the meeting.
I see there's a question from Siku in the chat
Okay.
regarding the opportunity for transfer of technical skills, API training, etc. It's
Mm-hmm.
really something that is very related to the third service that we had in mind. Because as I presented it originally, it was like the way I presented it, a tool for facilitating the participation of ocean stakeholders into key discussions. But something that emerged from this consultation and that I think we will look at, and I will be very happy to have much more ideas on how you think it could work. But was to use this quick connect tool as a way to, as you said, centralize technical skills, training opportunities, and to make sure that the stakeholder from every country they have access to similar activities that are done in other countries, and to the protocols, for instance, for scientific research and things like that. So yes, it's very interesting. If you have some more comments to share on this, I would be very happy to discuss this with you.
Oh, thank you for responding to that. Can you share position email? Yeah. Yeah. Josephine is saying there is a need to be an element of credibility and trust needed in order for users to engage with the proposed services. Do you have a plan to tackle this issue of perception?
Sure. Thank you for this question. As you mentioned, trust and credibility, it's key when you want to work with a very diverse area, like the very diverse number and profiles of ocean stakeholders. So it's very something that key for us. Concretely, what we are trying to do right now, it's on the we would like to, like, it's basically the reason why we try to have this very broad discussions with as many stakeholders as we can, is to be able to discuss with people that are used to work on the ground with diverse communities, the NGOs, the local communities, the private sector, etc., to be able to have within our network people who could help IPOS to design some tailor-made strategies to interact with a very diverse audience and a very diverse ocean stakeholder pool. So it's basically something that we are currently starting within this knowledge community development team to make sure that within this team that will help us co-design the way IPOS will work, we have representative of local communities, representative of early career networks, of the scientific community, of course, but also of the private sector, the UN ecosystem, etc., to make sure that they can help us identify who and like in what way we could interact with as many stakeholders as possible, and who could be the good interface for helping us doing it.
Good. Um,
Yeah, I don't know if you have any more questions.
we have 33 questions in the chat. I see most of them you have responded in your discussions, and yeah, I'm trying maybe to receive one or two before the end of our webinar. All right. And just to remind you, for those who are still asking, the presentation and Lucas' email and the recording will also be shared after the webinar via emails.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lucas, for that. Yeah, maybe like a closer for webinar, something you may want to tell our participants, like takeaway mostly on how they could engage and be part of this, and possibly on how, as early careers in the Western Indian Ocean region, we could collaborate for the IPOS implementation.
Yes. Maybe first of all, I want to thank you once again, the Western Indian Ocean Early Career Scientist Network, for facilitating this meeting, for moderating it, for helping in the organization. You were very helpful, and it means a lot for us that there's also this relation of trust that you offer this opportunity to us to share about our projects. And yeah, it's very important for us to have the youth communities and the early career professionals communities involved in the IPOS projects. So I'm very happy to have this opportunity, and yeah, thanks again. Thanks also for all the participants. I saw that at one point we had more than 75 participants, so it's wonderful. We're very happy that you took the time to listen to what we had to say, to actively participate in the Q&A session. We will make sure that we respond to all your questions. And if you have some more questions that you didn't have the opportunity to ask, feel free to send us by email. Yeah, I would be very happy to respond to this. If you want us to have meetings, like dedicated meetings with your organizations, feel free to send us an email. We'd be very happy to present the IPOS, the Towards IPOS initiative, and this IPOS project to your organizations in a more detailed way. And to come back on your question, Elos, on the participation of early career scientists and the youth communities in the Towards IPOS initiative, I think I can identify two main ways. The first one, it will be participating in the co-designing of the terms of reference of the IPOS. So basically of what the IPOS will be, what will be its governance, how it will work, etc. And for this, I will share again with you the survey that is available online, on which you can share more feedback on what you think is needed. You will recognize some of the documents that I've shared with you today, but some questions are new, and yeah, it's also a good opportunity for you to take the time to share your feedback. So if you're interested to do so, we'll be very happy to have your feedback via the online survey. The other opportunity to be involved in this project at the individual level, it will be through the pilot projects. One thing that we will organize in November, and I can share with you if you are interested some information regarding this, It's information sessions about the pilot projects. So what they are about, what is the objectives, where it comes from, sorry, and also how concretely you can be involved in it. So I think I would be very interested to have a session like this with a participation from the Western Indian Ocean Early Career Scientist Network. So yeah, I will come back to you with a proposition like this maybe in the coming weeks. And then lastly, at the institutional level, so this was at the individual, but at the institutional level, once again, I'll be very happy to have a meeting with you if you would like your institution to be part either of the coalition of scientific institutions or this coalition of strategic partners that we want to develop within the IPOS. So, once again, thank you very much. It was a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today.
Well, thank you so much, Lucas, for telling us all about IPOS, and I'm pretty sure that the members here are going to be a good deliverer on sharing about what the IPOS is and how everyone could be part of it in pushing the goals, because we all want action-oriented in the ocean and sustainability space, and that's very much important. For our attendees, thank you so much for joining us today, and it was wonderful to have you all at this hour, very early in the morning, to listen to what we have to tell you. And thank you so much. We hope that we will continue engaging with you more and more in attaining our goals for ocean sustainability. And please to take the survey Lucas has shared today with us, and which will also be shared in the follow-up email after these sessions. So feel free to connect, feel free to respond to it. And thank you so much again for joining us today.